Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Tim Weigel, grape IPM specialist with the New York State IPM program and Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. And I'm pleased today to have Bryan Brown, who is the new integrated weed management specialist with the New York State IPM program. He came out today to talk to us. And Bryan, you're still fairly new in your position. You started last August. You've been
July,
learning.
yep.
Or excuse me,
That's
last
right.
July. Yep. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you see going forward with your position?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I started last July. For that, I was at the University of Maine, finishing up my graduate work on weed control, primarily in vegetables and field crops. We don't have many grapes in Maine, but a lot of the principles of weed control carry over to grapes. So my new position, I cover vegetables, field crops, fruit, and ornamentals. And so I'm doing some learning related to those new crops. And I guess overall, doing or promoting with a focus on integrated weed management, it's basically IPM is what it boils down to. It's the general, scouting, preventative tactics. But integrated weed management also has a big focus on preventing herbicide resistance,
Mm-hmm.
and that was maybe 20 years ago when integrated weed management really started developing and gaining steam as a response to the herbicide-resistant weeds. And so, in some ways, it's kind of combating human nature in that we want to find something that works well and stick with it, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whereas integrated weed management says, well, that type of thinking leads to resistant weeds. So let's start thinking about integrating in more different kinds of herbicides, more tactics like cultivation or flaming or crop rotation.
That's interesting because I think we've talked about that with grapes for insects and diseases,
Mm-hmm.
about looking at different modes of action, different cultural practices, that, and never really have looked at, because it's a perennial crop.
Yeah.
Herbicides seem to be the way to go, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's what growers have used over the years.
Right, yeah. So I think a big thing for grape growers to look at is the mode of action group number, which is should be listed on the label, but it's listed in the IPM guidelines now, to make sure that you're using a good rotation of different modes of action. And if you can, start thinking about, maybe working in some of these other tactics. I think the growers I've seen do this successfully will work in maybe one new herbicide or one new tactic at a time to get the hang of it, rather than trying to do everything at once. But yeah, like you said, perennial weeds in a perennial crop
Right.
are a real problem. And this summer, actually, I'll be working with Hans Walter Peterson on a project looking at how to control perennial weeds, especially bindweed, field bindweed, using systemic herbicides like glyphosate applied in mid to late summer when the perennial weeds are most susceptible to systemic herbicides, when it's going to translocate that herbicide down into the root system, as well as some pre-emergence options like rimsulfuron and possibly others. And then we're going to compare the effects on the perennial weeds and on the grape yield and the economics to amongst all these practices or all these herbicides, but also between a set of repeated cultivations. So
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of the organic approach to controlling perennial weeds, trying to keep hitting the perennials to control the top growth so that you deplete that root system and eventually starve the plant. So I'm excited about that, and
Yeah.
if any growers are interested in collaborating on this project, we do have some funding to do some on-farm trials if they're growers with a lot of perennials,
Great.
which I think there
there's
are,
probably one or
so.
two we can find. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And Bryan is also going to come out for our Summer Grower Conference in the Lake Erie region on August 2nd. So maybe you'll have some at least preliminary results that he can share with us then. So thank you very much, Bryan. If you have any questions or comments, you have suggestions for future podcasts, please leave it in the comment sections below.